Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Team Prerna, it is my pleasure to invite each and everyone for this virtual session. In the words of Sylvia Plath, I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I lift my eyes and all is born again. The eye never forgets what the heart has seen. We take our vision for granted till we have a few issues to sort out. That is when we realize the worth of an ophthalmologist. We have with us today Dr. K.R. Satish, who is a MS in ophthalmology. His special interest is in the field of cataract, oculoplasty, and pediatric ophthalmology. Dr. Satish has been a professor and head at the Institute of Ophthalmology, Kasturba Medical College, Manipal. He has published 12 articles in peer-reviewed journals and has been a keynote speaker in several national and international conferences. He has served as editor of South Asia edition of British Journal of Ophthalmology. He has been in Dubai since 2001 and he has worked with Wellcare Hospital and is currently with JTS Medical Center, Jumeirah. With such credentials, it is our privilege to have Dr. Satish in our midst today. He is here with us to give us insight on vision and its development, in addition to focusing mainly on common visual disabilities and remedies. I'm sure all of us will gain immensely from this session, not just for ourselves, for our dear children too. I wish to welcome Dr. Satish now. Over to you, Doctor.
Namaskar. Good evening to all of you. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's thanks to Meetaji for inviting me here personally. Thanks Mohanji for coordinating this, and thanks all the members of Prerna. In fact, a couple of days ago, I logged into this program and heard Dr. Saroj Thapa herself, and noted the motivation of Sati becoming Prerna. I heard it has braved through so many obstacles and still continuing and celebrating a decade of existence. Congratulations to Prerna and his team, and you are doing a human service to the community generally and leading by example. It's a privilege to be with you all to share this seminar. It would have been good if we were to physically there, but thanks to Corona, we are sharing it this way in the comfort of our house, not moving an inch from where we are. But it's good enough to interact formally. Thanks Sujata for a lovely introduction. Not that much as what he has said, but let me be truthful to what I have been known to at least some of you. It's been 2 decades in Dubai now, and I had the opportunity to interact with so many people, many of whom are special needs children and their parents. It is so heartening to see the young children grow up into lovely souls, like so bubbly, so energetic, and so pleasant, and much more different than able-bodied buddies who complain of so many things for nothing. So I really love that interaction with the children. It's probably something that I grew up with. Like I am from Manipal, as you just said, and my grandmother lives in a distant place called Coimbatore. So as a child, right up to my almost college days, every summer vacation I used to go to my grandma's place. Every child loves the grandma's place very well. And one of my grandma's closest friend, she had a son who was about 3-4 years older than me with the special needs. He had a trisomy 21 boy. So he used to come home and stay with us, and I used to have a close interaction with him over a couple of years. It was very friends, and I used to play with him. Probably that was the one which gave me an insight into the lives of a special needs person and the family, and also saw the an immense love and affection and care given by his mother, and how other family members in my household treated him. So it was from close quarters that I've seen the challenges and the outcome of good love and care. And then on, I went to the medical school, learned about the special needs in the professional way. Furthermore, I became an eye specialist, and I have concentrated on one of the most important contact of the special needs person to the outside world, the eyes. And I am happy to be in the eye care profession, and it has been very, very rewarding to me. I have also learned immense patience from them, and it's just a soul-to-soul connect that makes me comfortable. And somehow I have also had a luck to have so many of such children be comfortable with me. You just saw that today is the World Environment Day, and you know the theme, celebrate biodiversity. So even in our existence, we do celebrate the diversities of various abled people. And so it's always the theme of Prerana, inclusion. Everybody is included in this great journey called life. I just stick to the subject of the vision, not just the eyes. It's an amazing faculty of special senses in the body. It is mediated through the eyes, but not ends at the eye. Eye is only the means of vision, but the organ that visualizes is the brain. If you really look at the evolution of the eyes from the fish, frog, birds, animals to humans, so many changes do happen, and there's one goal in the evolution of eyes, that is to maximize the focus. The entire existence is something to do with praying and propagating, and the eyes have evolved in many, many ways from that in the evolution cycle. The whole growth has been linked to the sun. I'm saying this important because currently a lot of people have interest in the so-called blue light. But please understand that the evolution of all creatures, we are all belong to the solar system. Our nerve center, our very center of growth is the sun. The body has evolved to be with the sun, or when the sun is up, what the body develops. When the sun is down, what the body develops. So this being the most sun-centric version, and eye is the means of conveying the presence or absence of sun, is very, very vital. For example, when the sun is down, the blue light is down, the evolved body senses that the sun is down. Is a time for developing a hormone, growing a hormone from the depth of the brain, which not only looks after the sleep, but one of the most important job is happening in sleep, that is the body repair. You will be shocked to know that every single day we develop thousands of antibodies to our own cells, thousands of cancer cells. And it is something mediated through this melanocyte hormone, which regulates all these cells and keeps us in good health. So one of the things what we talked about the blue light is its absence is necessary for the nighttime body repair actions. So that much is the link of our body growth and the evolution to the sun. If you just imagine looking at the eagle or the hawk, from a mile above the sky, it's able to focus on a little rabbit running on the ground, and it can swoop down to catch it precisely. That's what the eyes have been developed to. But is the eyes important? We would say it's absolutely important. But have you gone to the deep caves somewhere in the neighborhood in Hutta or any other places? In the depth of the caves, there will be some lakes or ponds, and you will be surprised to see fishes with no eyes. Believe me, yes, there are no eyes, but they do propagate, they do live, they do move. So is eyes not important? But again, I tell you, for that fish which lives in the depth of the cave where there is no light at all, there is no function for the eyes. So evolution has seen to it that the eyes are important when we live in this outside world where sun is the driving force. When the sun is not the driving force, there are fish with no eyes. What I'm trying to say is that eyes are important for the growth of us. At the same time, you might just click on some channels, I mean, YouTube videos. You will be surprised to see many of able-bodied children blindfolded navigating some hurdles on a roller skater. You'll be surprised how do they see those moving obstacles. You go further, you will see some of those blind children reading, saying the colors, reading what is written. So in fact, our ancestors have understood the vision in deeper sense, and they evolved a special yoga called Prajna Yoga. It's a yoga based on intuitivity. In fact, Art of Living schools have a lot of this Prajna Yoga. You'll be surprised to see totally blind children able to see well, read well. So that means the headquarter vision is not the eye, it's the brain. It's up to you to train the brain to almost see by intuition. So what I'm trying to convey to you is, yes, it's important to have the eyes, but that's not enough. To visualize, it's the brain that is the most important. Just recall the best dream that you had. Yeah, don't tell us, but you recall it. Vivid dreams. But didn't you see it with the eyes closed? Yes, you saw it, the eyes closed. So how do you see with the eyes closed? That's precisely what I'm trying to say, is the brain that is the most important one to visualize. Eyes are the means of the vision, easiest means of vision. They are specially designed to convert light rays into electric signals conveyed to the brain. The faculty of vision is actually an evolutionary priority. From the evolution from in the frog, it's in the side, in the animals in the side, in the humans it's in the front. And for that, not only the eyes have moved, not only the bones have moved, but so many other integrations happen behind. The nerve behind the eye is the optic nerve. The optic nerves simply don't go to the brain. They cross at the base of the brain and then reach all the way to the back of the brain. The course is through the entire brain, spanning over various parts of the brain. So it is elaborate, expansive, but at the same time, it's probably risky. It has got so many vulnerable points. So this whole integration is also cooperated by the muscles in the eye. When I say muscles in the eye, we all look at this. This is not the muscle that I'm talking about. It is slender ribbon-like muscles. Each eye has about 6 muscles and one even more slender thin muscle inside the eye, which helps the focus. So 6 muscles on each eye, they are interlinked. They are in so perfect coordination that everything goes in order. There is no disagreement in the normal sense. But what is more important is these 6 muscles have 3 nerves subserving these 6 muscles. If you look at the leg down below the hip, there's so many muscles, but all those muscles is one nerve. But the eye has slender, thin muscles. The 6 muscles have 3 nerves. Actually, 2 muscles have one dedicated nerve. All the way from the brain, they travel to the front to subserve one muscle. So that's what I'm trying to get you again back to the basics of evolution. Evolution has rated the eye function and functionality to the corest so that it has got an exclusive dedicated muscle. If you really look at further, 40%, full 40% of the brain is dedicated to the function of the eyes. Such large body we have, such small eyes we have, 40% of the brain is dedicated to the eye functions. So there you can understand the priority given to the visual system in the human evolution. So in this scenario of the importance given, let us just look at the eyeball as it is. Well, you all read through your school days and read through your children's school books also about the structure of the eye, function of the eye. It's like a camera. The entire structure is designed to do the proper focusing at the recipient part. The focusing is done by the clear front portion like the watch glass. This is called the cornea. Then there's a small aperture, the pupil, and behind that's a lens. All these three get to see the right focus and they fall onto retina. Retina is a very half a millimeter thin structure, but it's so very complex. About 10 different layers of the retinal structures are there. It has got 125 million rods and cones, rods for seeing light and cones for seeing the color. All of them just surmise into 1 million nerve fibers. And all these 1 million nerve fibers are represented exact point to point without any confusion. And they converge to form the optic nerve. This particular organization is an amazing growth in the womb. And after conception, within the 3rd week of conception, the primordial form of the eye is developed. It is developed so early in life that many parts of the eye is not recognized by the immune system. Our own body has a complete recognition. It's got a little dashboard. So every little part of the body is known. But some parts of the eye is not known to our immune system at all because the eye has developed much ahead of the immune system. So even in the growth in the womb, eye was prioritized along with the growth of the brain. In fact, eye is considered as an extension of the brain. Because the light can't penetrate through the opaque walls, it has to be receiving the light. That's why it has been brought to the front and given a separate protection. Hearing, it's okay. The sound can penetrate through even the thickest of the skulls. So that was the priority in the growth, and that made it whole delicate. If you really look at the growth, it is amazing in the sense that there are so many hormones that are developed within the eye. And the consequence can be best understood in premature born children, children born much ahead of the time. In fact, there are, like nature is amazing that in each and every stage there is a particular hormone to come, particular thing to look after that particular growth, and it's completely organized. Don't ask me how it is. We all gloat about the artificial intelligence. It is nothing compared to the intelligence and capacity of nature. Just for example, if the 32nd or 33rd week of pregnancy, of conception, there is a hormone developed inside the eye called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. It is at the peak, and this is the one which looks after the development of the retina. But if the child is born premature, then this particular growth factor in the 33rd week would be overactive and cause so much of uncontrolled changes in the retina, which causes problems of growth of vision. In fact, if not attended to, it will even cause blindness. So I'm just trying to give an idea that it is not just the care of the eyes after birth, it's the care of the eyes through pregnancy also. See to it that there is you don't take such risks of causing the premature delivery. Of course, it is amazing science to get the premature child to be looked after, grown, and become normal. They become super intelligent, fine, but some of them may not be that lucky. When you are born, the eyes are open. Many animals, the eyelids are not open for a few days after birth, but we are born with the eyes open. But is that the eye that sees? No, it's not that the vision is full at birth. We all have a normal naive thinking that eyes are normal at birth and the child sees from birth. No. Eyes are like the limbs also. The child is born with a well-developed arm and legs, and then no child runs on the first day. It has to learn to sit up, stand up, walk, run. It's a whole process of learning. So is the eye. What I'm trying to say is get your expectations right with regards to the growth of vision. It's the size of the eyeball at birth is about 18 millimeters. Compared to that of an adult, it's about 23, 24 millimeters. So every one of us are born with some specs number. So don't say that my child has no specs number. No child is born without a refractive error. All of us are born with some refractive error, and that keeps changing as the eye grows. It is not necessary that it grows at the same pace for everybody. It's not the same pace between the two eyes. For some, it grows little more, or some grows little less. And that is the root point of your spectacle errors in childhood. The rough estimate is that the vision at birth is about 5%. By about the fourth month, it's about 10%. And, like it becomes almost 100% between 1.5 to 2.5 years. If you can look at the child's eye at birth, it can be rowing all over. It will row helter-skelter. For the first child, the mother thinks as if the child has squint or something else. So it will take 2-3 months for stabilization of the muscle movement. The eyes will be going here and there. It will come into focus by third month. If you recall, you all as parents have really loved when the child smiles at you, and doesn't smile at you by the first month. It smiles at you by third or fourth month. So that's the first indication that the vision is growing normally. At birth, the child will only blink when there is a bright light. But looking at you and smiling at the mother, smiling at the father is something which we all loved it. It's a very special moment. That's one of the first signs of the vision is improving. And however beautiful, lustrous the child's eyes are, should be having a checkup. Almost all the pediatricians do have a primary checkup when the child is born to see whether there are any obvious birth defects or not. But even if there are no birth defects, even if the child is able to spot the say aeroplane in the sky or the moon in the sky, by about the third or maximum by fourth birthday, the eyes should be checked, because there can be some of these variations in the growth of the eye that I referred to earlier. The whole issue of the specs numbers come from this growth issues. Now, as I just said, the vision is a function of the brain. Eye is the means to support it. You can just imagine that suppose there are some challenges to the brain development. Even if the eyes are normal, absolutely perfectly normal, the child may not see or may not comprehend well because the brain growth has been challenged. This is one of the common brain injuries which can happen at birth for various reasons, lack of oxygen for some time. We all know the issues which can be affected, but if the brain is affected, then it is quite a challenge for the growth of vision. But it's an amazing structure. We even with this modern day science, the amount of knowledge of the brain is less than 15%. So we do not really say that, oh, this brain is like this. We will never say the doomsday, because something strange or special can happen many, many years later. But the main seat of vision is the brain. Why that particular knowledge is important is that the vision as a function of the brain can be growing up to 8 years of age. The brain is spongy. It can absorb so many new things in learning, and it can grow up to 8 or 10 years of life. There is one condition called lazy eye, which is commonly mistaken with regards to movement of the eye. I am not talking of that lazy eye. I am talking about the function of vision. A lazy eye is one which, even after providing the best food, the best glasses, and best everything, it fails to see 100%. Not at birth, but after 3 or 4 years of age. If that lazy eye is not addressed at the particular time well before 8th birthday, then that lazy eye is etched hard in the child's eye and remains for life. I always give the example of concrete. Concrete, with the concrete, you can build a bridge or a burj or whatever, but only when the concrete is wet. When the concrete is dried up, it is dried up. It has whatever shape it is in that dried up state, that is it. You cannot change it until you break it. Same with the child's eye. The child's vision can be growable only up to 8 years of life. That's the period where the concrete is wet. I'm telling you, up to 8 or maximum In our part of the world, it's about 10 years of life. If by that time the vision is not developed, it will remain dull for the rest of that person's life. We are shocked to see so many people, young teenagers who go for getting a driving license, and the Shurta says, no, no, your vision is not good. And when whatever we do, there is a specs number, but even if you give the specs number, vision doesn't go beyond 60, 70% maximum. The rest 30% will be defective. Even in future, if you do the laser or LASIK, somebody asked about LASIK, even if you do LASIK, it will not improve if the vision ability has not been grown in the first 8 or 10 years of life. What I'm trying to say is, whether it is a special challenged child or whether it's a normal healthy child, there is a need for checking the vision properly by the 4th birthday. I hope that I have conveyed that point clearly. What are the warning signs of vision defect in a child? You know, like presence of a squint or a rowing eye, something rowing like this, or eyes crossed in or crossed out. Then, you know, like sensitivity to light or redness, watering. There are so many things which are obvious. You know, like even many times it is a TV, I mean, difficulty of watching TV, holding it close or going close to the TV and watching. Of course, beware of the hearing also. Sometimes the child doesn't hear properly, may go close to the TV to hear properly, but eye is also more important. So whenever those signs are there, you will definitely get the child examined. I'm not telling that. I'm telling that even if the child is very healthy from all counts, please get it checked up by the nearest place wherever you have about the quantity of vision, because you have a very small window of 3 or 4 more years to get the vision correct. Now, one of the things that we need to know is what are the spectacle errors that can come. We have heard of various names like astigmatism, myopia, hypermetropia, long sight, short sight. You have heard the names, but what do all of them convey in common? It is that there is a lack of focus of what the child wants to see. And why is it so? It is also something very common. It is not an error of lack of feeding or lack of nutrition, excess screen time. All those things are absolutely not related. Not even related to the carrot juice that you have drowned the child in. It is something to do with the size and shape of the eyeball, which I had already referred to earlier. The child has a right to have an eyeball of the normal size, but some of them can have a longer eyeball or a shorter eyeball. The longer the eyeball, more will be the difficulty in distant vision. Shorter the eyeball, more will be the difficulty of near vision. So it is the size of the eyeball. And who controls the size of the eyeball? It is the individual constitution of the child. You might have fed the child well and you would love it to be Amitabh Bachchan, but he may not become by the height. So what is the individual constitution of the child? That will prevail. So whatever you try to do here and there, the spectacle error, which we are all born with, some amount, a remnant of it can continue. So it is not the spectacle error which is the problem. It is the uncorrected spectacle error, thereby causing alesia is the problem. And who is responsible? The child is not. Child is a child. It's you and me, you as parent, me as a care provider. It's our responsibility to. There is a major indulgence in the word called astigmatism in this part of the world. It's of course a tongue twister. Let me break the tongue twister. Astigmatism is 3 letters. A is absent, stigma is point, ism is condition. It is just one focusing error where the focusing doesn't come to a single point. For clarity, we need a single point. What is this due to? Not any major disease at all. It is just the shape of the eye. You just try to look at anything with just the lid stretched like this. Just stretch your lid like this and try to see how the things get distorted, because this particular lid is twisting the cornea. Cornea shape is changed, the focus is changed. So astigmatism is a birthright. Some amount of astigmatism every one of us have. Even those one of us who say that we don't have glasses, just check your eyes. You have 0.5, 0.75 astigmatism by rule. So please don't make a mountain of astigmatism. It's a rule. But if it is beyond some level, it can affect the growth of vision that I said. So normally we say, like for age also we have some specific guidelines. If it is beyond those guidelines, then we keep it. Correct. Wear the spectacles. All the aim of this treatment is to ensure that the vision is maximized well before the 8th or maximum 10th birthday. So astigmatism is again not a disease, not an entity at all. Please don't worry. Actually, there is nobody without astigmatism, including those who paid a lot of money to get their laser correction done. Some amount of astigmatism will remain. So what are the treatment available other than the spectacle errors? In children especially, there's the squinting tendency. The eyeball can come in or come further. Most of them have a tendency for the two eyes coming closer. In fact, when we read, when we see something near, the two eyes should come closer. That is usually deficient in special age children. So the child is not able to get the two eyes together, so it doesn't get a proper focus. So it will have the vision not clear. When it's not clear, it has a little disinterested in what he wants to see, what he wants to learn. You all rush to call it a learning disability. Sorry, don't rush that much. It may be just a simple focusing error by the muscles. You just have some exercises to increase the muscle tone, and there it is. Sometimes there can be an obvious squint, and again some of the squints can be corrected with the spectacles only, some corrected with spectacles and exercise, but beyond some range where it is not amenable by spectacle or exercise, then we talk of surgery. It is not surgery for every goddamn squint that we come across. So the challenges are special with regards to the eye mobility also, not just the size and shape. Now, what is the importance of correction to a child with special needs? In fact, I just referred to the one I said earlier, 40% of the brain is representing eye function. And if the focus is not right, that much portion is not working. So if you can get the right focus at the eye level, and if you get the right signals to the brain, it's a stimulus. And if there is some improvement of vision, you will see a lot of change in the behavior of the child. You will be surprised to see that your child is doing so well in school suddenly. So what was causing the trouble was not the trouble with the child itself, but with just the lack of focus. So just be aware of this possibility. Don't brand a child as this and that. Just get the vision checked up, stimulate the vision, and that you have conquered the mountain. Of course, there are genuine issues of the brain injury and causing the challenges. That will be addressed as a specific thing because it's not a one-person treatment. It's a team of specialists and therapists to work on the child. If you just look at again, the general surfing of YouTube, you will come across a lot of this natural therapies for eye. Some people even go on to blame that wearing the glass is the worst mistake that you do in life. They would say that you do this exercise, that exercise, looking in front of the sun, behind the sun, whatever. But in the medical parlance, that particular vision therapy is not validated because it is not done in the proper study, as we say. I have not been involved in those things, but I have to caution you because there are so many very, very telling videos which suggest do this, do that. But please understand this, it is a structural and functional issue and not any laziness. If you don't, you just take your own greatest, like fantastic camera, DSLR camera, which has got all the facilities of focus, but you try to take a photograph without the focus, without the aiming, without the adjustment of the aperture and zoom, you will get horrible photo. Then don't blame the camera. You have not done the necessary zooming, focusing, and the aperture control. So same thing about the eye. It just needs that particular focus. So ensure that instead of doing all sorts of things, especially vitamin A and the carrots, they're very, very favorite of all mothers and children. Whenever there's eye trouble, a carrot juice is a must. Well, carrot is a very good vegetable. All of us need to take it, but please don't indulge in it. Remember that carrot and the vitamin A is not a water soluble vitamin, it's a fat soluble vitamin. That means any excess of it you take stays in the body, it doesn't get flushed out. And excess vitamin A is not good. The very function that you wanted to take care of, that is the improvement of eyes, the very eye itself can be affected if you have too much of vitamin A. The optic nerve can get swollen. So do not indulge in it. Let me put it this way in that context now itself. Who needs to eat carrot is those children who don't have one square meal a day. Those preschool children who don't get that square meal a day. You tell me who is there in Dubai who doesn't get a meal a day? We are all on the other side of it. We have to look at the number of on the weighing scale. We have to control what we eat. So don't overdo the carrot part. It is important to take it in routine amount, but don't overdo it. So what I'm trying to say is, don't try to take shortcuts to the actual fact of vision. You address it matter of factly. The schools in Dubai do a good job of, screening children very early. Many times we get a note from the school teacher or said that, okay, the child is not seeing well. Do not fault, please thank the teacher, because quite often she or he is right. The child needs help, and thank goodness the child has been seen well before the 8th birthday. So we can do something to gain the vision. We may not stop the numbers, but something to gain the vision, yes. Now, the role of the teachers is not just checking the vision, but in the special needs scenario, it is very important that the teacher understands that special needs children have a special requirement. It is not just enrolling the child in the school, as Dr. Thapa was telling the other day. It's not just enrolling the child in the school, but it's enlighten the child, engage the child. It's by engaging, it's not on one-on-one service that you do, but you also, the whole class gets to know the challenges of such a child from close quarters. At least some of those children develop a habit of empathizing with such children, which goes a long way in making the society better. A teacher has a very important role. We as professionals, yes, ours is to identify the issues and address it emphatically and empathetically. What about the parents? They are the epicenter in the management of this challenge. I don't say the epicenter of the problem, in the management of this challenge. Well, as parents, there is something called Kubler-Ross philosophy. You know, any particular challenge that suddenly stands in front of you, you have 5 different grades of facing it. The first is denial, then anger, then bargain, then again even depression, and finally acceptance. It may not happen overnight, it will take a while, but we all go through this. Let us not put it only special children. So many of those challenges that we get, we go through these things. Somebody suddenly there's a diagnosis of simple blood sugar, most of us deny it. Immediately you say, I don't put sugar in my tea at all. That's not diabetes at all. So similarly, this denial is the first thing to happen, and finally comes acceptance. Once you accept it, life is a real, accept that this is a child, that you have to take care. There are so many things that you enjoy in the upbringing of the child. I have to just get one example of how such groups like Prerna, Prerna is something, this one, such parents also form their group. I happened to treat one child who was born with a lot of defects, including the eye, and her eyes were very small, and even if the brains were brilliant, it wouldn't develop. Unfortunately, that child had both the brain and the eyes to be small, so expectation of visual potential is less. And the parents were very understanding. They're from Bombay. I engaged them for an hour and a half, and I tried to tell them realistically, but with soft words, and still say that it is not eye alone. There are so many things that the child can grow. So I was monitoring the child, treating with the spectacle numbers and the exercises, whatever it can happen. And because they couldn't find an inclusive school in Dubai. It's about 5, 6, 17 years ago. I'm giving a story from then. They had moved the child to Mumbai and put it in a regular school. A child with something around just 10% vision that had grown in a regular school. And the child has grown to a very, very, very cheerful, chirping young lady. She had passed her 10th and 12th exams with the, like first class marks. And she was looking forward to joining a computer course. And I think she has joined the course now. Even now, her vision is 10%. So what motivated her is, when she comes to my clinic, I tell my staff that she's coming today. Don't check her vision. If you check her vision, it is not necessary that we are going to tell your vision is 10%. So what goes home is that I have 90% less vision. Not that I have 10% vision. I have 90% less vision. So I just make it a point. I know the child. I know that the parents also very fine. So I check the vision. I check the child and talk to her. And because the parents were so involved in the child's upbringing, they're very comfortable with what she has achieved in life, and she's absolutely fine. I just earlier talked about navigating without any eyesight. She has got that. She has got that intuitive vision. I don't know whether she has had a Prajna Yoga treatment or not, but she had the intuitive vision. She's very fine. She's capable of managing anywhere. But on an onlooker, you know that she's not seeing well at all. But what I am trying to draw it is these parents, I had, cultivated them to be role models for others. And another day when I was in Wellcare Hospital, one mother had come with a child, something very similar. In all other places, she was dismissed in 5 minutes to say that your child is blind. Nothing can happen. So somehow she had heard about my name. She came with so much of huge expectations, and the eyes were really, involved, affected. And she had, come with the clear idea and told point blank on my face, "Doctor, if you say that my child is not going to see, I'm going to stand in the middle of the road outside your hospital and commit suicide." So I was really shocked and said I had to engage her for about an hour or two, and I told her, "Look here, I have seen a child with much worse vision than your child, and see what it is. And I am just putting you to the person from Bombay. He's here. I'll talk to him." In front of her, I talked to him and said, "Hey, can you talk to this lady?" He was so willing to talk to her and engaged her. Same evening, they met and talked to her. And it was so very, involving from that person to this lady. From a point of suicide, she's normalized. She went on to have a normal second child. And this child also went on to have a vision, and she's like any other child now. So what I'm trying to say is, it is not just our role of making a diagnosis and dismissing. It is also to see that there is so many other things to be looked after in the care of the child. So to the parents, is that, you should look at yourselves as the chosen person, chosen by nature or chosen by Almighty, to help this soul arrested in this challenged body to navigate through the life, to the development of life. Your sense of fulfillment is to see that this person is on his own. And the very acceptance of this role of yours is the one which gives you pleasure. Even one small improvement in function gives you the pleasure and happiness. And please indulge in it, and you will go far. And I would just say, God bless you. God bless all. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for explaining in detail from the basics. The journey was really nice. And there are a couple of questions. I think probably I will try to quickly share with them one by one.
Yes, please.
Let's see how much we can address. Dear parents, kindly bear if all the questions are not addressed. As we do in the earlier lectures, we try to make sure that we get the answers for you from the speakers at a later stage. First question is, a boy who is special needs does not like anything on his face. So if he does not wear a specs, is it okay? Or whether will a laser surgery help, and can it be done under anesthesia?
It's a very pointed question to the topic of the day. Yes, the laser can be done, anesthesia can be used, but what is the purpose? Let me just refer to what I already referred to. The spectacle number is a statement of the size and shape of the eyeball. And the boy is not less than 8 years of age, he is well beyond 22 years of age. So being a boy is full physical growth in height has happened. So there is no more change in the specs number that can happen. The LASIK can get rid of the spectacle need to a large extent if it is feasible from other factors. But the vision that is grown before 8 or 10 years of age is all the vision that the child will have after the laser is done. Laser is taking the glasses off. So the answer to your question, yes, it's possible. GA is possible in a facility which has got the GA, and it's doable. But what is that he will appreciate? Is it the hatred of the glasses? Does he hate the glass, or do you hate the glass? Is the question.
Thank you, doctor. I think probably the next, Mitaji, you would like to say something? Yeah, please.
Read out that question because there's more information coming in on that second question. A parent has written about their young son. He's got optic glioma with autism. And he's got this on both the optic nerves due to NF1. Now, he has problems with redness of the eyes, which is like throughout the year, most probably some allergy. They want to find out whether they can use a home remedy for it, like washing with Trifla powder or something. Is that safe to do? Second, they want to know, do they have to see a neuro-ophthalmologist, and how often should they do this? Is MRI of his optic nerve important?
It's a highly specific question. It's like more conjectural that there is a special need from other reasons. But the main point of the child is that is NF1, and because of that, the optic nerve glioma is there. It's unfortunate that it's on both eyes. And as the recommendations is that the optic glioma is evaluated by MRI, because that shows the back of the eye very clearly. Because in some children, this optic nerve glioma has a tendency to invade the inside of the skull. Right now, it is only sitting behind the skull in the orbital cavity, in the socket of the eyeball. Beyond, if it grows beyond, then it's a major surgical issue. And yes, it is important that they have to be under the follow-up of a neuro-ophthalmologist. That's one part, the core part. Now the allergy part, I have not been trained in any Ayurvedic medicine, so I have no comments on this. I do not know. So I cannot say Triphala good or not good. But one thing about allergy is one which once it's been sensitized, it will be there for many years. He has to outgrow that. Right now he said he's a small boy, but as a boy till 20, 21 years of age, it will come bugging him any now and then. But what is more important in allergy is that the allergy, not only the eyes will be red, the boy will be rubbing the eyes. A constant rubbing the eyes is an invitation for inducing spectacle number. It's been previously people used to say, no, nowadays there are a lot of articles say those boys, children who rub their eyes, they get more and more astigmatism. So it is important, it's not the redness that you're treating, it is the consequence of the allergy that you're treating. Now, I always fondly tell about allergy in one way. Allergy is not any a special disease to be looked at. It is like immunity. Let me just give an example. Like all of you as parents were merciless in taking a little 1-month-old, 2-month-old child to the pediatrician and got all of them pricked for the vaccination. Why? With all those repeated injections, the child slowly develops an immunity. And what is that immunity? That immunity is some program. Immunity is a buzzword in all the talks these days. this immunity is the one which protects the child from all those specified diseases, which are life-threatening diseases. And how long does the immunity last? It lasts forever. How does it work? The body, when it is exposed to that germ component repeatedly, develops its own defense mechanism of identifying and attacking it, and that program remains in the body. Like it's a software in the hardware. It is permanently there. You just need a password to open that software. So similarly, allergy is something like the immunity, but not to germs, but to external factors like the dust, chemicals, fumes, and perfumes, and especially carpets and pets. So once the allergy is there, that means the system has already developed a program which is very case sensitive. The minute that dust particle is exposed to the eye, the allergy opens up. So putting in any Triphala or washing it out with water is not the answer. We have no way to get rid of the program from the body, but at least we can control the symptoms of allergy, thereby preventing the consequences. So ideally speaking, it is to manage the allergy with the specific anti-allergy drops, which has got a seasonal variation. Some season it's more, in summer it's more, in winter it's less, by and large. And this particular allergy will mellow by the child becomes an adult. 20, 21 years of age, that boy should be much less allergy than now. And like on the lighter side of it, whoever is the doctor they consult when the boy is 20 years is very good, because after that the allergy didn't come. The fact is that allergy is known to be less after 21 years of age. Have I answered that question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mohanji, the third question.
Go ahead, Ji.
I'll go. Okay. This is a case of a 45-year-old female. She's got, I don't know if I pronounced the word right eye proptosis for 1.5 months. The CT scan shows nothing abnormal, but they've been asked to see a thyroid, assume that there's a thyroid problem, and they have been referred to endocrinologist. So they want to know this is the right course of action and for the eye.
See, a 45-year-old lady having one side of the eye bulging by proptosis, the first, second, third diagnosis is thyroid. Okay. Then comes the other things, like tumors or other growths and other things. First and foremost is the thyroid. So now the question is, we are all tuned to believing 1 + 2 is equal to 3. Our maths teacher in a primary school is so effective that 1 + 2 is equal to 3. That is so ingrained in us that for everything else in the fact of life, we want 1 + 2 is equal to 3. So the problem with madam is that she has got a CT scan which shows nothing. That itself is a diagnosis. What shows nothing means it doesn't show any tumor, it doesn't show any muscle bulk, but actually the fat would have increased. Fat content would have increased. That is a hallmark of thyroid eye disease. So showing nothing is actually showing something. And one of the things of thyroid disease is a very difficult subject for a commoner to understand. Many of the medical faculties also don't understand. If I tell this one, I don't know whether she can comprehend or not. The eye can be proptose, eye can be bulging, even when the thyroid levels are normal, even when the thyroid levels are high. Lo and behold, even when the thyroid levels are low. So if you just want to correlate the bulging of the eyes to the thyroid level, sorry, you missed the bus. So best person to decide about this is the endocrinologist. And there is a treatment protocol for this, and it will respond slowly. We are all in Dubai. We are all used to smart government and smart fast action. Thyroid disease is the one which takes a lot of patience. I hope I answered that question to madam.
Thank you for it.
Welcome.
We have another question about a 22-year-old. The problem is long sight. And the parent wants to know, can it be corrected? The doctor they refer to said that it is not possible to correct it because it's not flexible anymore.
Most probably the position of, I'll just come back to the basic question. Like in the middle of the talk, I said we can build a bridge or a burj. So whatever we build, we need to have a foundation. Whatever be the foundation, according to that will be the building, right? So for doing the LASIK, the foundation is the cornea. The cornea should have the necessary thickness to do a LASIK. If the cornea thickness is not good, then LASIK should not be done. But LASIK is not the only way of addressing such numbers. There are other ways of doing things, like putting some implantable contact lenses or phakic IOLs. There are ways of doing it. A specialist who does this so-called refractive surgery can address that question. But if you want LASIK alone, it needs to have a foundation. Without that foundation, no LASIK should be done. For example, let me put it in numbers. The thickness of the cornea in the center should be at least 0.5 millimeter. That accounts to 500 microns. It should be at least that much. Because by the LASIK procedure, we skim it up, so it should be having enough residual thickness. But many of us are blessed with very thick corneas and do what you want with the cornea. But a large number of us are also blessed with thin cornea where you cannot do the LASIK. But for the person where the long side cannot be adjusted, the other methods can be used other than the LASIK, called phakic IOLs or ICL is what the question, what options we have.
All right.
Thank you, doctor. And the last question is also related to LASIK. They want to know, should a 10-year-old go in for a surgery?
It's something like buying a suit for his wedding at 10 years of age. I'm sorry, what I'm trying to convey is, you might be feeding and taking care of that boy very well. You will be very nice and taking care of all this. You do not like his face, a nice face with the spectacles on the face. It's you who don't like it. But you have no idea how tall is the boy going to be. So telling you that at 25 years of age, my son is going to get married, I'm going to get a suit, it doesn't fit. You have to get it as it fits. So why a 10-year-old boy should not have the laser is that's a growing child. Whether the laser is done or not, the growth will prevail. That is, as I said, I referred to as a constitution. There will be a growth. And with the growth, the eyeball will also participate in the growth. So doing a laser at that age is not good unless there is spectacle number in only one eye. If there is only one eye spectacle number, but that eye is very likely to be lazy. So there is a role of doing laser to get the two together, the two eyes matching together. Otherwise, it is prudent to wait for the child to grow up, let the number stabilize. Usually for boys, it's about between 20, 21 years of age. In girls, it is 17, 18. This discrimination is by nature, not by the eye doctors. And, that once a boy is 21, then we can do it. It will be much more beneficial because laser is not like a toothbrushing treatment. It can be done only once, and the best thing to be done only once. It's not that you go on doing laser anytime you want. I'm just trying to put it in a very harsh way, just to convey that sabr, your child will grow. Your intention of doing laser is fine. Do it when it is safe.
Good.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
I hope I answered the question, madam. Sorry for my language.
Doctor, there is another question, one of the parent, which is, I think everybody's concern is that, can you share with us a few exercises which can keep the eye intact, in the sense to normally take care? Simple exercises.
I sort of expected this question. In the beginning of my talk, I said that we have been blessed with 6 muscles. I used the word ribbon-like slender muscles. I even showed this, not like this muscle, with a specific intention of answering this question. I didn't think somebody would ask, but I had made a specific way of putting it. The muscles, the fat, the nerves, veins, everything inside this bony socket. This is a very rigid bony socket. Okay. So when you do those exercises beyond some point, you are invariably making the muscles go bulky. Earlier, when the muscle goes bulky, there is no space. When there's no space here, if you want it to be bulky, okay, you have all the ones you have space as it is. You have seen some of those who weightlifters go with the poise that way, but you don't have space here. So it is important to have the muscle to be slender rather than bulky. So if the muscles bulky, they are coming at the cost of the eyes prominent, eyes becoming bulging. So, and there is no exercise for the other things. Basically, what is important is, please understand that the eye is able to see not only because it is an eye, but because the muscles work for focusing on it. The most important exercise required is with this, like current world, even the school has come home now. Forget about the teachers. School has come home. Even the mother, father, and the child, everybody is at the screen. There's so much of indulgence in screen. And how far is the screen from your nose? Less than a foot. So we are using this particular, gadgets or anything that we see close to the face, and this is enabled by the small, slender muscle inside the eye, the round muscle inside which does the focusing. So I always fancy telling this. All of us are known to the habit of taking our laptop bag on our shoulder as we go to the office. If you're not working from home, you have to go to office, take the laptop bag on the right shoulder. But within about 5 minutes, that laptop bag comes to the left shoulder. Further 5 minutes, it come back to the right shoulder. Why? Who has taught you this? It is just that sensation of little tiredness of the muscle. The shoulder is not a peg. It's a muscle which is lifting the shoulder. It gets tired. So you give relief to the muscle without anybody telling this. Now I try to go on telling all the patients who come along to my office and even to this forum, I say, please understand there is a muscle inside the eye which is getting doing the job of focusing. If that muscle doesn't work, you don't see. So you need to give rest to that muscle. How? Not by looking here and there, just by shutting up both the eyes. Just close both eyes continuously for 2 minutes, and that is how the muscle inside will relax. Just like how you interchange the laptop bag, you need to give the rest to the muscles so that it remains supple. That is the most important exercise required. Not by looking at up and down and here and there. Unless there is a squint, outward going squint, there is no real necessity for the muscle. There is something called convergence efficiency, then there is an exercise required. Otherwise, there is no exercise required. But most important is give rest to the muscles. Suppose imagine that you have shifted your laptop bag from the shoulder to the elbow. Will the shoulder get the relief? You won't, right? So what I'm trying to say is giving rest to the muscles of the eye involves giving rest to the muscles of the eye by completely shutting it off. If you want to give the rest to the shoulder, take the bag off that particular side itself. So how do you give rest? Why I'm telling this is some people say that I look here and there now and then. Look here and there, you're still looking, man. You're not having the eyes rested. So the simplest, easiest thing that you can do about resting the muscle is closing the eyes continuously for 2 minutes every half an hour of your work. So I'm sorry, she has asked for muscle exercise, but I'm trying to tell you, please be kind on your muscles, give it a rest. So we are concerned about outside muscle. Please be obliged to this muscle without which you can't see anything near. If you're not convinced, come to my office. I put a drop to relax the muscle and see what you can see. If you're not convinced of that muscle working for you, just put the drop and see that muscle relax for half an hour. You can't see anything. So give rest to that muscle. Forget about exercise. Unless you have a specific squint or convergence efficiency, do not overdo the exercise bit. I hope I answered the question properly.
Yeah, thanks, Doctor. Doctor, there is another question. I think you have already answered this. However, I think to recheck, at what age the growth of the eye stops?
The physical growth of the eye, by and large, is over by about 3rd or 4th year of life. But there is a proportionate growth which keeps happening. Suppose by the third, proportionate growth means that when the body grows, the proportion of the eye also increases. And that usually stops by about 21 years of age in an adult and 18 years age in a girl. That's why if there is a spectacle number, and if you want to do LASIK, please wait until that age for this reason. There can be physical growth of the eye.
Right. Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
I think probably we covered most of the questions which came on the chat as well as what we had received in advance. And It was a very great talk, doctor. I think I would request parents to stay back because we would like to share the video, what we shared in the beginning. The activity what children did on environmental, using all newspapers or a lot of things at home, and have come up with creative things. We have put all those small activities what was sent by all of you in a small video, which we would like to replay after the formal vote of thanks is done. Now I would request Suchitra ji to give the vote of thanks, please.
Good evening, everybody. Respected guest speaker, Dr. K.R. Satish, Honorable Executive Committee members, all ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this 4th day of the Prerna special event. I, on behalf of Prerna team and families, extend a hearty note of thanks to our speaker and presenter, Dr. Satish, for gracing the event. We are grateful to you for giving such an excellent talk about eye and eye health. It was really very highly informative and quite thought-provoking also. I'm sure every parent had got some good idea about eye and its health, and it will be much useful for them in future. Thanks for sharing and clarifying various issues that our parents had asked for. We sincerely hope that we will have more sessions with you in future also. I would also like to thank each and every one of you who are present here attending this session today. A special thanks to our team working behind the scene to make this a fruitful event. Looking forward to seeing you all again tomorrow with our next session. Have a great evening.